In today's video, we're taking a look back at the 2017 NHL Draft and examining the first round, and we're going to redraft the top 10 picks. We'll get into that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, today we're doing a redraft for the 2017 NHL Draft. I mean, we're not too far away from being 3 years removed from this process, and a lot of these players have had a fair bit of an opportunity in the NHL. Some haven't quite made it there yet, so this very well could change the list if we redo this in a few years down the road. I'm quite sure some players will probably surprise us in good ways and in bad, but this draft certainly has produced a fair bit of exciting NHL talent so far, and I thought it'd be fun to take a quick look here at this draft. Now, first of all, let's take a quick look at the original top 10 picks for the 2017 NHL Draft. As you can see, going first overall to the New Jersey Devils was forward NICO Hischier. Nolan Patrick went second to the Philadelphia Flyers. Of course, heading into this draft, there was a big debate if Patrick would go first or Hischier, who would kind of put up a late charge to challenge him for that first overall spot. Of course, Nolan Patrick, the concern with him was more about his health and ability to stay healthy and injury-free, which obviously he's encountered in the NHL so far as well. The number 3 pick went to the Dallas Stars, where they took defenseman MIRO HEISKANEN, who's really had a solid start to his career. Number 4 pick was Cale Makar to the Avalanche, who's turning out to be a stud defenseman. The number 5 original pick was the Vancouver Canucks taking Swedish forward Elias Pettersson, who's had a tremendous start to his career. Hard to imagine he slipped down to 5. The number 6 pick was the Vegas Golden Knights with their first ever draft selection, taking forward Cody Glass from the WHL. Number 7, the Rangers selected Elias Andersson, Swedish forward. Number 8 was the Buffalo Sabres taking American-born forward Casey Middlestat. Number 9 was the Detroit Red Wings selecting forward Michael Rasmussen. And the number 10 pick was Florida Panthers selecting OHL sniper Owen Tippett. Now, a few interesting things on this draft so far. We've actually had 6 first-round draft picks already be traded, which I found a little bit intriguing, considering, like I said, we're only coming up on 3 years in a couple of months' time here once we hit the summertime and the 2020 NHL Draft takes place. Hopefully it does, based on the season being suspended right now. It's not quite clear if the draft will proceed on its original planned date or not, or if there'll have to be adjustments. I guess we'll have to remain to be seen for that. But either way, in only less than 3 short years, already 6 first-round picks being moved. Let's take a look at who those guys are. Out of the 6 traded so far, 2 of them were the Vegas Golden Knights picks. Now, they had multiple first-round picks because of deals they made with other NHL clubs leading into the 17 draft. Of course, they traded number 13 overall forward Nick Suzuki to Montreal in that Max Pacioretty trade. And then they also traded the number 15 pick Eric Brandstrom to the Senators in the Mark Stone trade. So they picked themselves up some very experienced, very productive forwards, but did give up some pretty solid prospects for their future, but it certainly helped them be a very competitive team right away rather than build later on down the road. But they do still have a guy like Cody Glass in the picture here, so Vegas does have a decent mix, but not quite as deep of a prospect pool as some of us thought they might have, considering where they went, but they decided to take a different approach, which is certainly working out well for them. The number 19 overall pick was Josh Norris to the San Jose Sharks. He was involved in the Erik Karlsson trade with the Senators as well. The number 23 overall pick was Pierre-Olivier Joseph, drafted by the Coyotes, and Joseph was traded to the Penguins in the Phil Kessel trade, so he's already been on the move. The number 28 pick was Shane Bowers, who was drafted by the Ottawa Senators, and now a member of the Colorado Avalanche, who went there as part of that Matt Duchene trade. And the number 29 pick was Henry Jokiharju, drafted by the Chicago Blackhawks, who was sent to the Buffalo Sabres in that swap where they sent Jokiharju for Alex Nylander, which was a little bit of a puzzling trade at the time, but so far it worked out well for Buffalo. Nylander did have some decent impacts with the Hawks right away, but kind of tailed off as the season went on. So many of these guys appear to have some pretty decent NHL potential longer term. Joseph has really yet to leave his mark. Josh Norris got into a few games this year with the Senators, looked really solid, having a tremendous year in the AHL. So I think for the most part here, a lot of these guys have bright futures that we can say with a little bit more certainty, but we'll have to see down the road here. Now, if you want to take a look at some of the top draft steals that have taken place in the 17 draft, there's already a few late-round picks that are looking out to be gems, diamonds in the rough, if you will. Let's take a look at a couple of those players. First up on that list was the number 117 overall pick by the Columbus Blue Jacket, Emil Bemstrom. Bemstrom's really had a solid year this year up until the suspension of the NHL season. He had appeared in 56 games and put up 20 points, was having a decent rookie season. Of course, with all the changes the Blue Jackets encountered last year, losing many players to free agency, he was able to come in and have a really solid start and grab a spot on the roster. And the other one who I think really has a ton of potential as well, down the road, was the number 121st overall pick, Drake Batherson, again to the Ottawa Senators, who appeared in games last year as well as some this year, putting up 19 points in 43 games so far. Bit of a late bloomer in his career. He was late getting the major junior, late getting drafted, but not late making it to the pros quickly after being drafted, especially being a mid-round pick like he was. He's put up 54 points in 44 AHL games this year, as well as one of the top scorers in that league. And Batherson seems to be prone to be ready for a top 6 role with the Senators longer term. So to grab him that late in the draft was certainly a great steal, because you can see here between these steals and the trades involving first rounders, the Senators have their hands all over it here. Now let's jump into the redrafting section of this video, where we're going to take a look at picks 10 up through 1. We're going to redraft these players, but we're going to go in reverse order here just to have a little bit of suspense. We'll start with the number 10 overall selection. The number 10 pick overall belonged to the Florida Panthers, and now they would be selecting forward KAILER YAMAMOTO, who originally went to the Edmonton Oilers at the 22nd overall pick. He's really made his impact on the NHL this year. The Oilers appeared to kind of want to rush him a little bit to the NHL, but slowed things down after the arrival of Ken Holland. He had some more seasoning in the American League and then came up partway through this year and was doing well. He's put up 31 points so far in 53 games. He's a smaller player, but he's very quick, offensively gifted, and can certainly contribute with some of their top players on the Oilers roster. So for me, he would now be a number 10 pick and move up on this list a fair bit. The number 9 overall selection would be Martin Necas. So, of course, that number 9 pick originally belonged to the Red Wings. Necas went to the Carolina Hurricanes at the number 12 spot, but he's had a solid start as well. Appeared in some games last year, but was a more regular player this year. Put up 38 points so far in the first 72 games of his career. I think he has top 6 talent. Probably going to be a solid number 1, number 2 center, but with the Hurricanes organizational depth they have right now, probably at best number 2, at least for the short term. But I think he's got a ton of upside long term here as well. Now, the number 8 pick originally belonged to the Buffalo Sabres, where they took Casey Mittelstadt. This redraft has FILIP moving up all the way from the number 21 pick, who originally went to the New York Rangers. He's had a pretty solid start to his career as well. He's had some decent amount of seasoning in the AHL and has certainly moved up to grab a more regular spot with the Rangers this year, putting up 49 points in his first 144 games. So he's played a fair bit over the last 2 years, getting to the NHL rather quickly, and he's got a ton of talent, and I think longer term can be a big part of the Rangers' rebuild in their future here. Now, the number 7 overall pick originally belonged to the New York Rangers. Of course, they took Elias Pettersson, who's waiting to be traded, who certainly will make that list of first rounders traded a little bit longer in short term. The Swedish forward hasn't quite worked out with them, but they would now select Nick Suzuki, of course, who was drafted by Vegas, traded to Montreal, as we already discussed. Suzuki's put up 41 points in his first 71 games. Looks to be a terrific fit with the Habs. Certainly, again, a little bit of a smaller player, but very quick, very offensively gifted, a great playmaker. I think Suzuki's going to have a solid NHL career. It was a nice pickup by Montreal, of course. If they were going to have to trade Captain Max Pacioretty, he was a good piece of the return. Of course, they also got Thomas Tatar in that trade as well. So far, even though those trades can be tough to win with star players like that, they've done well in that particular case for sure. Now, the number 6 overall pick originally belonged to Vegas, where they took Cody Glass. Now they would be selecting Robert Thomas, who of course went to the St. Louis Blues with the number 20th overall selection. Robert Thomas really is a little bit of a steal, in my opinion, to go that low in the first round. Of course, played with the London Knights, had a tremendous junior career. He's a great leader. He's a great two-way player, and his offensive game has really picked up at the NHL level as well, putting up 75 points in his first 135 games, was a regular contributor to their Stanley Cup victory last year. Thomas is slowly working his way up the depth chart, up the lineup here with the Blues, and long term is going to be an absolute gem. Later into his career, I can certainly see the possibility of him maybe even wearing the C with the Blues. I mean, that's going to be a ways away, but longer term, I can see that being a possibility. He's just a solid all-around player who's really blossoming offensively. So to me, he really moves up this list quite a bit from 20th up to number 6. Now, the number 5 pick originally belonged to the Canucks, where they took Elias Pettersson. Of Of course, that's a bit of a steal now at number 5. Now I'd have them take in Nolan Patrick, who originally went number 2 to the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, of course, Patrick slips down from 2 to 5. I kind of debated putting him a little bit lower, but to be honest, if it wasn't for his injuries, which we don't know what's going to impact him longer term here, I would have maybe put him a little bit lower, or maybe even a little bit higher as well. But his injuries really adds an intriguing part to this that you just don't know what the future holds for the young man. 61 points in his first 145 games. Didn't have a great start, but not a terrible one either. Of course, he hasn't really played this year due to migraine issues, and with the season being suspended, even if they come back, doubtful that Patrick joins them. He probably waits to hopefully start his career back up next year. But certainly another player that's very intriguing and hard to predict just because of the health issues. Longer term, if I redo this in a few years' time, I do see the possibility, unfortunately, of him dropping further if he's not able to overcome a lot of those issues that he's been facing. Now, the number 4 overall pick was the Avalanche selecting Cale Makar originally. Now I'd have them selecting top original pick, NICO Hischier. Hischier's a tremendous talent, not quite blossoming into the franchise player that some thought he might for being a first overall pick, but he's put up 135 points in his first 209 games, so certainly not bad. Played his junior hockey with Halifax Mooseheads. They've had a tremendous ability to take some of these import players coming over from Europe and really do tremendous offensive players. Hischier is a really solid player. I wouldn't put him down any lower, but if I were obviously doing this again, he would not now be the number 1 overall pick based on how some of these guys have kind of really pulled ahead of him here. The number 3 pick was MIRO HEISKANEN, and he's the only guy who I'd leave where he was. I think he's in the perfect spot. Ideally, he's a top-rated defenseman. He's proven to be a solid player so far in his career, putting up 68 points in his first 150 games. A tremendous skater, going to be a stud on the blue line for the Stars for many years to come, and I think that's exactly where he belongs. I would not make any changes when it comes to the number 3 overall. Number 2 overall was the Flyers taking Nolan Patrick, and now I would be moving up Avs defenseman Cale Makar, who was originally drafting 4th overall, moving up 2 spots to number 2, putting out 50 points in his first 57 games. This guy's going to be winning the Norris Trophy before too long. It was a solid contention for the Calder Trophy this year before the NHL season was suspended. Once the awards are settled and handed out, would not be surprised if he ends up winning it, or at least he'll be one of the finalists for sure. But either way, Makar is an absolutely tremendously gifted guy. I really see him being a number 1 stud defenseman for a long time for the Avalanche. And when you get that kind of player that's available in the draft, you take him just about every time, depending on who else is on the board here. And there's only one guy left who I would take over Makar, and that's the number 1 overall selection in this redraft, which is Canuck forward Elias Pettersson. Of course, he replaces NICO Hischier at number 1. He would end up going to New Jersey had they saw his potential ahead of the other players. He's put up 132 points in his first 139 games. Had a tremendous rookie year last year. Followed it up with another solid campaign this year before things came to a halt. But Pettersson has proven to be an elite forward and a guy that the Canucks can build around for the long haul. Pettersson's going to be demanding a big contract here soon with the Canucks, and they're going to be building around guys like him and Quinn Hughes on the blue line. They have some stud guys there that can really make a big difference to their team longer term, but there's no way that Pettersson goes anywhere else but number 1, in my opinion, if we were able to go back and do a do-over for this 2017 NHL Draft. So can you imagine some of these players wearing different uniforms now had these teams made what I would kind of call the right decision? Now, as I mentioned, there's a few of these that I don't think will change a whole lot. I don't see Pettersson ever really coming out of that 1 spot. Even 2-3 with Makar, Heiskanen probably stay the same for quite a long time, but there's certainly a lot of players lower into the first round that are just kind of taking their time, getting their NHL debuts out of the way, and some later round picks, as I mentioned as well, like Bemstrom and Batherson, who very well could work their way into a first round pick if we redo this draft again into the future. So of course, as always, I want to know what your thoughts are on my selections, and let me know who you would have going into top 10 picks if this 2017 NHL Draft was able to be redone. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. We can continue the conversation. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content. We're still putting out daily content even though the NHL season is suspended, so you can come back to Top Shelf Hockey where we can discuss hockey here every day. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.